like Duke Nukem versus Barney, please. I just want Duke Nukem to obliterate that thing, that little marshmallow. I don't know what the hell Pikachu's powers are or whatever. Let's just have Duke just spray his yellow all over the place. Please, please.
If I had to be a video game character, I wouldn't be stuck in some tiny world with, just a shop or something. I want to be in a big sprawling world where I can go anywhere I want to. I can swim, I can jump, I can cut down trees, whatever I want.
Coming up on Pulse, we went to the city of brotherly love to show some love to the industry's pioneers.
Plus, we're headed back to the Designers Corner and the DICE Summit to get the experts' take on sequels.
And I went to the Museum of Natural History in search of dinosaurs and the latest Jurassic Park game. It's all coming up right now on Pulse.
Welcome to Pulse, your weekly look into the world of interactive entertainment. I'm Ronnie Lynn Riley.
And I'm Patrick Clark. Today we'll get more details on that deal that Activision and Valve announced at last week's press event.
Plus, we'll tell you how Nintendo is hoping to make the GameCube more attractive to developers.
But first, is Midway calling it quits for Blitz and hits, or is the company just going more mainstream? Midway has always been known for its series of over-the-top sports games, dating back to 1993's NBA Jam, and continuing today with MLB Slugfest, NHL Hits, and NFL Blitz. The game appeals to both sports fans and non-sports fans alike, but apparently Midway feels it's time for a change. Perhaps in an effort to compete with Electronic Arts' roster of realistic sports titles, Midway has announced NFL Blitz Pro and NHL Hits Pro. Both games will feature more traditional gameplay, although Midway claims that they will still retain the edge of the previous titles in both series. It's worth noting that the NFL has voiced its displeasure with Blitz's glorification of violence.
With a shift in focus from late hits, cheap shots, and superhuman skills to more realistic sports action, is Midway confident that its designers can come up with something unique? Or are they feeling the heat from the NFL? Let's find out what gamers think about the bone-crushing action in Midway's sports titles in this week's Players Pulse.
NFL Blitz is one of my favorite, and which they also make hits. 2004 was one of my favorite games.
We all get into it, so I mean, we have big games and big tournaments over it, and it's just, again, everybody just gets wild on it.
It's a lot of fun playing that way and, fantasizing about, jacking people up like that. Me and my two oldest boys play it all the time, and we have a blast out of it. And we also play the regular NFL, the Madden, and I think it's totally cool to have two different types of games like that.
I have like Madden 2002 and all those games. I play those. I like the gameplay. It's fun to play the real games, but once in a while to play Blitz and be like, oh, I wish hits were like that.
I like the craziness. I mean, sometimes you need a little outlet from everyday life or everyday sports, and you want a spice thrown into it.
Well, I love football, and I love the violence in it. I mean, it's competitive, and it's a game. It's fun.
I think the thing that makes hits and Blitz and that NHL game is that it's the violence. I mean, that's what honestly makes it funny with me.
The NFL Blitz is what it is. It's you smash each other in. Elbow here, elbow there. Just fling them and just smash the shit out of I guess.
I mean, that's what made me buy the game.
While Midway is busy redesigning its most popular franchises, Activision is creating new ones. The company has formed a new umbrella brand to be known as Call of Duty. As the name suggests, the multi-platform action titles will center on various wars of the 20th century. The first games in the series will focus on World War II and are being developed by Infinity Ward Studios, which is made up of 22 former members of EA's Medal of Honor team. On a related note, April 9th's Daily Variety reports that EA recently settled a lawsuit against Spark Entertainment, a company also made up of former Medal of Honor developers who were accused of stealing creative assets and source code for use in a game for a competing publisher.
Activision's interest in World War II has grown by leaps and bounds recently. As last week we reported that Activision and Valve had formed a multi-game partnership and that Day of Defeat would be the first title to be released under the agreement. We were on the scene at the official announcement, so let's take a look at what we can expect from the commercial version of DoD.
We're here tonight in San Francisco to celebrate the launch of Day of Defeat, a new product from Valve, and also announce the partnership between Valve and Activision, which is a new multi-title publishing deal that we've put together with them. We take a new approach to development with Counter-Strike and with Day of Defeat. You know, these are products that were born from the community, and we sort of brought these guys into the company and have formed a retail product from that. And it's very much the reverse of the 2-year, the product is hidden away in development and then one day it goes to retail, and let's hope it makes it big kind of style. And Activision's a company that's ready to take on those kinds of challenges and to promote those new business models.
I'm going to take somebody out with this here shovel right here. It's a perfect game. I mean, you get to pistol whip, shovel, and snipe people. What more could you want? So, yeah, we're loving it.
As Activision readies itself to blow the competition away, Nintendo is doing all it can to avoid raising the white flag. Sagging sales of GameCube consoles have third-party developers looking around nervously for the exit door. But Nintendo is making a bold move to keep them at the party. Reuters is reporting that in March, Nintendo lowered the royalty rates it charges third-party developers. In other words, Nintendo is hoping that games like Eternal Darkness, which was developed by Silicon Knights, will continue to appear on the GameCube. Nintendo also plans to place heavy emphasis on third-party companies at this year's E3.
Even though Nintendo trimmed its royalty fees last month, it doesn't appear to have bolstered Capcom's confidence in the GameCube. Japan's Nikkei Business Daily is reporting that Capcom is reevaluating its commitment to Nintendo's console. Poor sales numbers for the GameCube exclusive Resident Evil 0, which missed its 1.4 million unit sales mark by more than 20%, are at the core of Capcom's decision. While Resident Evil 4 will still be a GameCube exclusive, future installments in the series will appear on multiple platforms.
So Resident Evil hasn't lived up to its GameCube expectations, but that doesn't mean all hope is lost for Nintendo. They still have the Wind Waker holding down the fort, don't they? Or is Link down for the count? Let's take a look at this week's EB Games Top 10 overall and find out. Leading off the countdown at number 10 this week is Sega's interpretation of the national pastime, World Series Baseball 2K3 for the PS2. Stealth, throwing stars, and an all-black wardrobe. That's all you need to be the ultimate ninja, and Tenchu Wrath of Heaven for the PS2, which sneaks in at number 9. The world of MMORPGs just got a little bigger, thanks to Shadowbane for the PC, which claims the number 8 slot. At number 7, it's not Married by America, but it is the strange union of urban music and underground wrestling in Def Jam Vendetta for the GameCube. Sliding in at number 6 is EA's revamped version of Kevin Costner's favorite sport, MVP Baseball 2003 for the PS2. Coming in at number 5 is the latest jewel in Nintendo's handheld crown, Pokemon Sapphire for the Game Boy Advance. And at number 4 is the other latest jewel in Nintendo's handheld crown, Pokemon Ruby, also for the Game Boy Advance. Grease up the catapult, because at number 3 is the return of the Gladiators of Destiny and Dynasty Warriors 4 for the PS2. It's number 2 on this week's countdown, but number 1 in GameCubers' hearts. It's The Legend of Zelda, The Wind Waker for the GameCube. And claiming the number 1 spot this week is the game that lets you smell what Ghostface Killah is cooking, Def Jam Vendetta for the PS2.
There's much more to come on this edition of Pulse. After the break, we're soaking up Philly like a sponge as we head east for a look at the Philly Classic Game Convention.
Plus, we'll head back to the Designer's Corner for a discussion on video game sequels. All that and more, only on Pulse.
Appeal to a broad audience, and young, old, rich, and poor gamers alike help the industry top the $10 billion sale. But the Jupiter Research Company has come across some interesting results from a study of low-income and high-income gamers. According to Reuters, the study found that households with an annual income less than $35,000 spend 50% more time playing games than households whose annual income exceeds $74,000. Microsoft's Platinum Hit series, which sets a lower price point for older titles, like Amped, has certainly made games more accessible to all income levels, and the study showed that price is a major factor in game purchases.
Speaking of low income, remember when games used to only cost a quarter in arcades? Huh? Well, most of the attendees at the recently concluded Philly Classic 4 do. We were at the East Coast version of the Classic Gaming Expo for a look at video games' pixelated past.
The Philly Classic Gaming Expo is a bonanza of gaming goodness. Everything from 1970 to 2003, from Atari to Xbox. That's sort of the tagline of our show. And the main components are, we have tons of arcade games and home console games set on free play. We call it a celebration of gaming goodness.
If you want to play classic 80s, this is where to come.
When someone walks into Philly Classic, probably the first thing they will not so much see, but hear is all kinds of Gronk, beep, zap, and all the classic video game sound. Then they would see a huge, huge array of vendors selling software, games, accessories. It's really mind-boggling. So we've got some people from Atari Age that are releasing 4 or 5 different new games, newly developed games for the Atari 2600. We have Cindy Morgan, who was the actress in Tron.
On my phone, I still have Space Invaders, and I play it on the subway in New York because the subway will make you crazy if you haven't got something to do.
There's a significant difference, I think, between classic games and the games that are being designed today. The classic games were not built to show off graphics or sounds. They were really built around gameplay.
I guess like having your first car, your first girlfriend, that's always the best. Even though it's totally out of date compared to nowadays, computers can't even stand up to them. It's always been my favorite because it's the first computer I ever had.
I think as the game industry matures, we're going to see all the classic stuff come back and take prominence again and be retro and cool instead of just retro and what those geeks do over there.
Someone walked into the show last night and said, "My head's gonna explode." And I said, "That means we're doing our job."
While it may not be as old as that guy dressed as Pitfall Harry, the Quake series has shown it has big-time staying power. Case in point, Quake Con. The annual pilgrimage gives Quakers from all over the world a chance to come together and celebrate their love of the game and get a few frags in while they're at it. So break out your calendar and reserve the weekend of August 14th through the 17th, because who doesn't want to spend a weekend in Texas in the dead of summer? According to the event's official website, attendees can expect, quote, 4 days of intense tournament competition, BYOC LAN action, game and hardware demonstrations, presented completely free of charge.
The Quake series has enjoyed a successful run of sequels since the first game in the franchise appeared in 1996. At this year's DICE Summit, we had the chance to talk with 4 developers who've also had success with creating sequels in order to get their thoughts on what makes a good follow-up. And it's this week's Designer's Corner.
During development of any game, there's a list of things that you want to include in the game, and sometimes you run out of time, and that's the list you pull out when you start thinking about a sequel.
If you look at summer blockbusters, they're by and large it seems to be filled with many sequels, and right. The upcoming Harry Potter films, Lord of the Rings, Part 3, everything. In the gaming industry, it's not that different in that area. I mean, people want familiarity to some extent. I think if you go to a publisher and you say, okay, you could have, Harry Potter or what's behind door number 2, the publisher is always going to go with the safer bet.
The lack of sequels would be the lack of innovation in our industry. That's exactly the opposite of what probably everyone else out here thinks. But if you didn't have sequels, publishers could not finance new characters, new ideas, new games, because you don't make that much money. You can, but you usually don't make that much money on the first one. It's the second one, when it's cheaper, faster, quicker, easier to do, that you make the money.
We tried to come up with universes that we could expand on if we needed it. I mean, we took the same approach in that we wanted to make a really good game and not worry about what might happen after that particular game. But at the same time, if it does well, like in the Spyro universe, we can take it and off into different directions, maybe still keep the same art style. We wanted to make sure that it was open-ended enough that we could build the franchise and continue it.
There's a lot of people who have just picked up Frontline or Allied Assault don't even realize that the PlayStation 1 games existed. That's something for us to definitely pay attention to, is always create a new experience and not think of it as a continuation of the prior games. It's actually making a whole new game every time.
Obviously, there are a lot of financial gains involved. If you can do a sequel which plays upon the which takes advantage of the character recognition. There is less marketing that you have to do to ensure success of the game. I mean, for instance, Sony has spent millions of dollars trying to get Ratchet & Clank out in the public eye. So if we were to ever do a sequel, then fortunately there would already be this knowledge base. People would know who Ratchet is.
There's a balance there of figuring out, what your game is, what your game's all about, and what everybody is currently playing and what's hot. And to go back to the Tomb Raider example, to go back to look at what's happening with the new Zelda, there are stealth elements in the new Zelda, because stealth, Splinter Cell and these kinds of games. I mean, right now it's one of the things that gamers really seem to like kind of dig into. Lara Croft is now peeking around a corner like Solid Snake.
If every sequel that you do shows the same level of innovation that your original game showed, then you're doing great, and then consumers should be continually excited about every game that you release.
You got it.
Coming up after the break, Microsoft is undertaking a quest of epic proportions as it begins its search for Halo's biggest fan.
Plus, I'm not a scientist, but I play one on TV. And what better way to check out the new Jurassic Park game? It's coming up, only on Pulse.
Hi, I'm Ivan Sergey. You're watching G4.
Do you consider yourself a star?
I'm the same girl I've always been.
You don't sound surprised about your popularity.
I've been deeply involved in the gaming community for years. It's where my biscuits buttered, so to speak.
If you could describe yourself in 5 words or less, what would you say?
I fall, I get back up.
That's 6 words, actually.
You're a cheeky one, aren't you?
Objective. Use people skills. Retain customer. Education. Natural. It says you have experience with Excel and Word, but what do you exactly mean by 38th level Beast Lord?
Ready, go team! Lock and load because the search for our new arena champion begins with a clash.
Gamma starts the round off by showing some gymnastics skills.
They are getting tons of kills and they even tied up the second round.
Look at that!
Cade is not giving up.
Ryu lands a major hit on Kyo. The pressure is on.
Arena, tomorrow at 11 p.m., powered by the Intel Pentium 4 processor.
Do you have a friend who just won't shut up about how much she loves Halo? Well, now you can tell her to put her money where her mouth is, because Microsoft has begun its search for America's biggest Halo fan. From now until April 21st, Halo lovers can submit an original and creative video that demonstrates why they're America's biggest Halo fanatic. One lucky winner will be credited in Halo PC, get a poster signed by members of Bungie Studios, and of course be crowned as America's biggest Halo fan. No word on if Fox is scheduling a reality TV series based on the event.
America's biggest Halo fan isn't the only thing Microsoft is looking for, though. The company is also trying to figure out what to do when Xbox Live celebrates its first birthday, which is when a lot of subscriptions expire. Everyone who paid $50 for the Xbox Live Starter Kit also received a 1-year subscription to the service. But when November comes around, some MechAssault fans will have to pony up again. Microsoft is reportedly looking at both monthly plans and yearly deals for users to renew their subscriptions, although nothing has been confirmed. There's also speculation that the company could announce its plans at E3 next month.
Let's switch gears from metal-crunching machines to bone-crushing beast. Vivendi Universal recently unleashed Jurassic Park Operation Genesis, which is best described as SimCity meets Trespasser minus the physics overkill. Ever wonder what the biting force of a T-Rex is? This guy knows. It's safe to say that Robert Spellman digs history.
Now, this bone has been buried for 66 million years. It's in pretty good condition.
But once it's exposed to the air, it will actually begin to disintegrate. So we have various types of glues that we put on top of it to actually protect it. We've actually treated the surface right here.
Spellman is an educator with the Natural History Museum in Los Angeles.
What you're looking at here is a very young tyrannosaur, for lack of a better term, a teenager. And this is all we found of it. And you can see this top bone in the skull here and part of the cranium.
You ever see that movie, I Was a Teenage Dinosaur?
No, you know what? I skipped that. Yeah, I did skip that.
But he doesn't skip any facts when it comes to fossils, which is why we asked the expert about all things extinct in Vivendi's Jurassic Park Operation Genesis.
Do you feel the game and the movies get it correct, get it right?
Put it this way, no one can prove them wrong. No human has ever seen a living dinosaur with the exception of a bird.
In the game, much like the movie, you're trying to build a theme park featuring dinosaurs. But before you can begin, you first must find some dino DNA encased in amber.
It is possible to get DNA out of insects encased in amber. There's an example where they found a bee encased in amber. They extracted the stomach contents from the bee, and inside were bacteria, and they were actually brought back to life. These are bacteria that were well over 30 million years old, but there's a vast difference between reviving a bacteria and bringing a tyrannosaur back to life.
I asked Dr. Spellman if he had actually created a live T-Rex and was hiding it in the museum. Thank goodness there are no T-Rexes around, because it wouldn't be pretty.
We've calculated the biting force of this animal at 15,000 pounds per square inch. You take three of the biggest SUVs, you pile them on top of one another, you have the bottom one drive over your toe balanced on one wheel. That's the biting force of this animal. You'll notice in the jaw here, the bottom jaw is not fused, so it can splay out at an angle like that. And it certainly could have, well, it would have been powerful enough to cut a human in half.
I have a friend, let's say it's me, who's scared of dinosaurs coming back. Could that happen?
No, you might as well be scared of everything else before that's going to happen.
I made some notes here. So something like this is not going to take place.
Yes, it is, actually. No, it's not going to take place. That seems highly unlikely.
But in Jurassic Park the game, you can make anything take place that you want. Give your T-Rex a tasty treat? Go right ahead. Take your chopper for a spin to see your surroundings? By all means. Or just mix and match your herbivores and carnivores. It's up to you to find out what combinations are great, or even dynamite.
Are there dinosaurs you would never want to mix in real life? You wouldn't want to put specific ones together?
Yeah, I wouldn't put a tyrannosaur with a long neck dinosaur or sauropod. I think that would be no contest, as we say. They wouldn't stand a chance.
Oh, we thought we'd just see about that. He was right.
We have a long neck dinosaur, also known as a sauropod, and these were shown in Jurassic Park. In the first movie, we had brachiosaurs. This is the animal that reached high in the tree and sneezed in the little girl's face. The way we have it depicted here is about as high as it could ever raise its neck. You think about it, if the animal raised its neck, the head would be 35, 40 foot up in the air. You'd have to pump the blood up there. Well, you'd have to have a heart inside your chest here that would weigh 4,000 pounds. There's not enough room in there for that. So that leaves you with the question, why did it have such a long neck? And the answer is, I have the foggiest idea.
And the feared velociraptors? Well, they're not exactly as they should be.
In the movie, they were portrayed as an animal about your size, but in reality, a velociraptor had a head this big, and the animal was about the size of a Doberman. It was about that high and about 5 foot long. Whether the portrayal is accurate or not, that's not the important part. Again, if you want to learn about dinosaurs, you come to the Natural History Museum and you talk to us, and we'll give you the very latest information that you probably can't get anywhere else.
So thankfully, we won't see live dinosaurs for a while. But the museum is the next best thing. And who knows, it might just improve your game with Vivendi's new Jurassic Park Operation Genesis.
In game announcements, JC Entertainment is set to take gamers to an alternate Old West with Priest. This online RPG takes place in what JC calls, quote, a twisted Lovecraftian vision of the American Wild West. This unique game of cowboys and zombies is set to mosey onto the PC later this year.
In new releases, the future of law enforcement is now, as RoboCop has found its, or is it his, way to the Xbox. Inspired by the 1987 movie of the same name, you'll take on the role of the Uber officer as he tries to fulfill his prime directives, serve the public trust, protect the innocent, and uphold the law.
After a nice Canadian vacation, everyone's favorite Metal Cloud hero returns in X2 Wolverine's Revenge. This third-person action game will reunite Wolverine with some of his greatest allies and most hated enemies on April 16th. That's all for today's edition of the show. If you've got something to say about today's stories, be sure to head to our website at g4tv.com/pulse and send us an email or join our message boards.
As we head out today, we're going back to the Natural History Museum because we can, and also because you can never be too prepared when it comes to being ready for a dinosaur invasion. Here's much more from our favorite educator, Robert Spellman.
For Patrick Clark, I'm Ronnie Lynn Riley. We'll see you next week on Pulse.
If you're going to be a dinosaur, what dinosaur would you be?
Some of the latest discoveries coming out of Liaoning, China, some of our small dinosaurs that are covered with feathers and could fly. That's what I'd want to be. A flying dinosaur.
I think I'd be a sleepolotamus.
Sleepolotamus. I could use some of that myself, yeah.
Prehistoric Sharpie.